It is December 24th, Sunday, 2017. Fun week, everybody. Fun week. So, finally got a bit more of the equipment into my room. I think I'm all set up now. Had to reset up some webcams. Had to adjust this microphone and everything. So, a lot of this has to do with when I've been streaming drawing now for a number of years, and having a headset attached to me has just been a real nightmare to kind of deal with off and on. So switching to a mic that can just hang above my head when I work is going to be easier. I'm just trying to make certain everything sounds all right, well enough. I mean, let's be honest, we keep it low tech here at SketchCraft. But that being said, it seems to be working well. Like, everything seems to be working good. What else has been going on? So, I had a couple of people comment on this morning podcast that I'm doing some kind of what they call ASMR or something. Like, it's that form of voice where you whisper into the mic and try to pop the peas. No. I think one of the things that I'm not able to show when I'm drawing and stuff is how I am normally. Like, when I got Brandon on, I got a bunch of people with me in the stream and live cast, and that's me being socially, yeah, socially, that's the word, socially friendly, Rob, that's me. This is how I am 98% of the time. I'm a very quiet person. Even my wife is many times, she's just you mumble. You need to speak up, Coincidentally, I have a very loud voice when I do, so I'm pretty certain at some point in my life I got yelled at for speaking too loudly, and this is how it's been, so this is just how I am normally. Plus, I do this first thing in the morning. I get up around 7:15 or so, and I'm let the dog out, and then I make my coffee, and then I'm in here recording this around 7:40 a.m. So 7:40 a.m., and this is what it's like 4 o'clock, but at 7:40, man, it just moves a little slower. My brain isn't all here, but what I like about it is that I'm able to not, what do I say, I think sometimes when you over prepare things to talk about, I wonder if it's a genuine feeling, like if I take too much time to write down a topic and flesh it out. These podcasts are more like just my thoughts today versus my thoughts tomorrow, versus my thoughts a week from now. It can all change. So it's just getting things off the chest, and it also in another way stimulates something else, right? And that's in an art department. I was used to having morning dailies. That's where you get together with your team and y'all stand in a circle and you talk about each thing you're gonna do each day. So in a way, it's a little bit of that too, and then it's a little bit of a place where I can just talk about my, parts of my life that, I don't talk about too much. So, whatever. You guys know why we do this. Mostly, it's a place where I talk about shit and no one listens, because the views on this are exponentially low. But that's what's awesome about it, right? Too, I'm pretty certain out of the 100 people who listen, that's 100 guaranteed listens. They're not just starting it and ending it. So, whatever. I don't care, What I do know is that this podcast I've been doing for about a year or so with Brandon, we're We round up the news topics and we talk about different things. And generally, it was 9 times out of 10 me being pretty aware of what's going on out in the geek zones, in the Nerdsville, and Brandon like kind of barely knowing some of it, and Ashley or Bacon or just peripherally, just like they know a couple topics, and then they're just so I don't know what to gain from all that other than it eats up people's time. And I didn't want Ashley to have to kill her Friday night when she could be drawing, or Bacon to kill his Friday night when he could be spending time with his wife, and and I just don't care what Brandon thinks, so there's that too, right? So what else? So let's see here, where are we at? Oh, we're only 5 minutes in. That's nice. So The Last Jedi came out, and this weekend it made 68 million. That's the estimate. And I've been quiet. I've been pretty quiet about this movie for a couple reasons. One, after the prequels, I stopped defending films. I either like a film, either I think a film's okay, or I hate a film, right? Or okay, I could care less, or then I hate, right? Rarely I hate a film. Batman and Robin's a film I genuinely just despise all the way around. Batman Forever is a film that I'm like, it's got some annoying parts I could care less for, but whatever, who cares? It's not my thing. And then I'm okay with Batman Returns, and I love the first Batman film, so if you kind of want to get an idea of how that goes. The Last Jedi is a film that walking out the theater felt like it was less of an episode of Star Wars as much as it was like a film professor's dissertation on Star Wars. Like, I felt like I was getting like a film student or a film professor. I hate to say a student because Ryan Johnson's no film student, so I'll say a film instructor's opinion on Star Wars. Like, the film, I felt like at times the film knew it was being watched. Specifically, spoilers, right? So I don't whatever. The scene when you see Luke Skywalker chuck the saber over his shoulder just felt like Mark Hamill's looking at us and going and chucking it over his shoulder, And I get it. If you wanted him to take the lightsaber and drop it and move on, it could have been done in a more dramatic way. But we just saw a character like sacrifice themselves and take out an entire Star Destroyer, and Finn came back, and then Luke was like, Felt to me like in the movie Spaceballs. A lot of times in this movie, in the movie Spaceballs, which is a satire of Star Wars, if you're not aware, there's a scene in the movie where they're trying to find the rebels. So they get a copy of Spaceballs, the movie. They put it in the VCR, and they rewind it to the part where they're at now. Like, they're looking at the camera, they look at the TV, and they see themselves, and they look back at the camera, and they look at the TV, and Dark Helmet's like, what are we watching? And his second in command, Colonel Sanders, goes, we're watching now, sir. And he goes, now? He goes, yeah, now. Anything that happens now is happening now. And, like, there are just times in this film where I felt like that was actually happening in the movie. So I came out thinking the movie was like a 7. It was well directed, and for the most part well acted. I just didn't care for the choices, and I felt like at times it was just telling me, how to think, and then at other times when I wanted clear instruction from the film, it left it vague. Case in point, it clearly makes a stand on animal cruelty, right? Like horse races and stuff like that, and child labor, which I get it. But then when you're like, what the hell's really going on with the Force and stuff like that, it leaves it very innuendo. Like, you figure it out, And I'm like, why don't you do the other way around? Like, I just don't know, Like, is the Force something that, like, is it the circle of life? Like, the antelope, the lions eating the antelope in Lion King is not an evil thing. That's part of nature. The lions are going to eat the antelope. That's the Force. It doesn't take a side. Like, and I felt that was somewhere in the movie, but then you got Chewie eating porgs, and that's evil. What's he supposed to do? Starve? He's a carnivore. He's not a fucking herbivore, man. So I don't, I walked out going, all right, I get it. I get it. I get it. Just don't care. Like, I just don't care. And one of the things that was not answered at all was, okay, if Luke rejects the Force, right? He's gone to this island, and he's not using the Force, he's rejecting, he's just going to go there to die. 2 questions. 1, why is he wearing the Jedi robes? I assumed he was wearing the Jedi robes because he knew Rey was coming, but he's not been using the Force, right? And he had no idea Chewbacca was there, so Wookiees are Force sensitive. It's pretty well known, so Star Wars canon, so it's like, and you see the very next scene, he takes off he folds those robes up and puts on his hermit clothes. And I'm like, well, yeah, he's wearing the Jedi robes because that was what JJ had Luke wear at the end of, so, we got to tie those 2 scenes together. And, I'm like, it's, they're going to have to try harder. I think they tried. They tried, and, okay, learn from it. It's not the end of the world. I think people going, you ruined Star Wars. Guys, I survived the prequels. Like, I defended The Phantom Menace, and then by the time The Phantom Menace, the VHS tape came out, I saw that documentary where Lucas was clearly frustrated with the film. I stopped defending Star Wars. And I went and saw Attack of the Clones, and I came out going, I just threw away all my Star Wars stuff. It's like, well, it's over. It's over for me. And it's already died to me. And when the Force Awakens came out, I was like, it's not a perfect film, but the adventures there, the used universe. I can't stress this enough. Like, for me, Star Wars has always felt like it was a real place, just far away. It felt tactile. Much of A New Hope feels that way, except for the Death Star. It's clearly, it's there, but it's clearly a series of hallways. But the cockpits of the Rebel base, the X-Wing, all of Tatooine, the Millennium Falcon, it felt used. And by the time you get to Empire, Empire feels, the lighting so good in that film that you look at it now and you're like, I can just reach out and touch that universe. And much of The Force Awakens had that, minus, again, the Starkiller base stuff, which just, you could see the CG mats, this film felt too clean to me. Like, a lot of it just had that prequel feel. And I'll say this, Rogue One, say what you want. You could all go, Rob, it's not that good, it's fan service. It looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. Case in point, in Rogue One, in the very beginning of the film, when you see Jyn Erso as a little girl running through the reeds, like, look at the dew and the dirt and the water on her, like, and Galen is like sopping wet and filthy, and just the Imperials are super clean, and like, the look of it is just so good. Like, I'm like, that's the universe that I know, that I respond to. And this film had it in some spots, like on Skellig Island, and yeah, when Luke goes into the Falcon, and some of the exteriors on a crate or whatever. But I don't know, man. Just so I gave the film a 7, and personally, I took it down to a 6 because I kind of feel that, as much as the internet would love to say the prequels were my movies, Rob, those kids that grew up with them, having worked in Star Wars merchandise, I can tell you the prequels don't sell. They don't sell. You can all have an opinion on this, and it's just an opinion. I've seen the numbers. I've lost Christmas bonuses when the Phantom Menace 3D re-release came out. None of the prequel kids showed up. That was just like a year or two after Avatar. 3D was selling big, so it was like they should have gone. No one went. Oh, by the way, the t-shirts, no one bought any. No one bought the Darth Maul shirts. Nothing. They didn't buy any of it. It's why they canceled releasing the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith 3D conversions, which were complete. They were going to release one every year. And up until Lucas was developing, I didn't know this at the time. I had read about it on the 3D market, saw that he was developing the new episodes. But I had done the math and said, if they release each one of these films every year, by the time they're done, episode 7 will be ready. So it made sense to me at the time. But the prequels don't sell. They don't. And if you keep stepping one foot into that zone, and good luck. And that doesn't mean the era. I'm not talking the era the prequels can't work. I'm talking the idea of you kind of playing things for laughs when it should be a little more serious. And the sets things are just sort of happening because the director kind of made it up. And that may or may not be the case on a film, but it shouldn't feel that way. As long as I feel like you know where you're going, good enough. Illusion maintained. But it really felt very clear to me when the prequels came out that he doesn't know what he's doing. And there were moments in The Phantom Menace when I felt that, but I was like, well, he knows where he's going, and yeah, Anakin's going to age significantly between the two films, but hey, by the time I got to Attack of the Clones, and Anakin meets his brother, Owen, which I had always wanted to see, like, man, I always felt like that dynamic between Owen, Anakin, and Obi-Wan was going to be awesome to see. Like, Owen wants Anakin to stay, and Anakin wants to go off, and he blames Obi-Wan for Anakin, basically becoming a monster and ruining the entire galaxy. Never happened. There's just one scene where Owen looks at Anakin in Attack of the Clones and says, "Oh, guess that makes us brothers." And I was just like, I had dropped my soda. It's like, that's it? That's it? So here we are, right? Subversion. The movie's subversive. And I've heard interviews with Ryan Johnson where he says it's not subversion for subversion's sake. But it is. I don't believe him when he says that. He knows it is. It feels very subversive intentionally. And I kind of liken this film to Iron Man 3 in many ways. He came off the Avengers, and we want to see how Tony's kind of reacting to the events at the end of the Avengers film. And maybe he creates the beginnings of Ultron, which could, that would be amazing. And, it kind of dealt with that, but then it gave us this villain, the Mandarin, right? Sir Ben Kingsley's going to be the Mandarin. He's going to have the 10 rings, the rings. And I was like, that's how they're going to start to, now that they have that Thor working, they'll bring the magic in, and it'll be magic versus technology. And you know what they did with the Mandarin? And I worked on that merchandise too. And I watched it tank. And it's like you took this villain that you were kind of selling as one thing, and then you get the movie and it's this other thing, and it's clearly a Shane Black move. Didn't sit well with the audiences. And look, you can be a film student and tell me, hey, Rob, it can't be about selling toys. No, but try to understand that Star Wars is It's iconic. Sorry, folks. It's iconic. And one of the reasons why the New Hope, original Star Wars, works so well is those droids. Those droids work brilliantly well. You care about them. They don't have faces. When Kylo Ren destroys his mask so you can see his true face and everyone's going to see him, I'm like, bad move. Bad move. All those toys kids got don't count now. And you're going to say, well, it's not about selling action figures. Action figures built the Star Wars universe. Lucas didn't make the fortune off the box office receipts. He made his fortune from retaining the merchandise rights. And then he sold those toys. And then you got to be careful, right? You don't make a movie just to sell toys. But make the designs iconic. So they leave an impression. To me, this was a film about imagery. The image of Vader was so powerful that it sparked another rise of the Empire. And there was no face to the rebellion. But Luke Skywalker, which no one really ever saw because he didn't get involved in politics, right? And he ran off to this island and disappeared. Why would Luke go to the first Jedi Temple if he rejects the Force? I would think he'd go to the first Jedi Temple to just live with Force Ghost, to ponder the depths of it and try to figure out what's going on, And what he could learn was that they need an image of hope, right? In the galaxy. They need an image of hope. And at the end, he becomes that. He becomes that image. But he can't do it. I always thought, like I was thinking about, like, if he went to the island, he took like a vow of no conflict. Like, the problem with the universe is the wars. The wars just keep going. There's never end to it. There's peace and there's war. There's peace and there's war. And Luke is trying to find a way to just have one side. And the fact is, life is going to have good and bad. People are going to make choices. The Force doesn't make a choice. We make a choice. And I always felt a problem with The Force Awakens was R2 isn't in it. So Luke should have had R2. If he isn't using the Force and he goes to this Jedi Temple Island, you need an astromech to use hyperspace in Star Wars. The X-Wing is there. There's no astromech droid. Luke should have had R2 there. And when Rey shows up to say, hey, we need you to come help save the galaxy, then R2 could play that thing to Luke, the Princess Leia video. And Luke could reject it, but R2 could go off with her. Like, R2 is heeding the call to adventure. And then Luke's stuck on that planet. He can't go anywhere. So he has to use a version of the Force Ghost, right? Which is this projection, a version of it, to project himself, which means he can then fight without fighting. If he took a vow of no conflict, then he can defeat the enemies without actually fighting. What he did was create an image. And so I think this script had tremendous potential, but I don't think it ever sat in a room with other people scrutinizing it and plussing it, taking the elements that are really good and taking the ones that aren't. Like the Canto Bite sequence. Like Robert Meyer Burnett from Collider posted on his Twitter about how you could have already set up the film where they're at Canto Bite looking for a way to get into the Rebel base, and can they get back in time to save their friends. There's all sorts of things you could have done with these scenarios. But after the prequels, I just decided I wasn't going to spend much more time with my life trying to figure out how to save Star Wars. I worked on the merchandise, and I couldn't save Star Wars. They got to do it. They're in charge of it. So, is it dead? No. It's a setback. But they were going to have a setback at some point. And they just need to learn from it. This film says failure is what you learn from, right? And if you've been listening to this podcast or hanging out on SketchCraft for any length of time, you would know that there's a lot of failure to go on around here. So I resonate with that message, and I think that message is very important. That we all always have a series of wins, that we can lose, but we can win. That in the losing, you know how to adjust and how to improve from, and this film needs to do that. And it can. Otherwise, whatever. There's other films to watch, right? There's other stuff to do. So, that's that, folks. It is December 24th, 2017, and I don't work on Christmas Eve. Neither should you. Unless you gotta pay for... No. Put it that way. Fuck. I fucked that up, didn't I? How about this? If you want to work, do it. If you don't, take the day off. It's Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everybody.